Welcome to this edition of Diligence Inside America's Boardrooms. I'm TK Kerstetter and I'll be your host for today's show. Today we're going to be talking about board experiences from a well-known investor advocate. And joining me is somebody that I've known for a long time, and it's a pleasure to have her on the show. Welcome Ann Yerger, who's a board member with Bed Bath & Beyond. She also serves on the privately held Hershey Entertainment and Resorts Company, and is formerly the executive director of the Council of Institutional Investors. Welcome, Ann.
Thanks for having me.
So again, it's after all these years, it's a pleasure to have you on the show, and it has to be a very interesting experience after your 20 years with the Council of Institutional Investors, representing all those investors, pushing for change, arguably good change, and then finding yourself on the other side for corporate boards. Now, you're a well-qualified director just because of all the investor experience that you have, not counting all the business and board acumen that you have. But there had to be some enlightening moments for you to go in those first board meetings with those companies, or to see the results of what you were pushing for and whatever. Talk to me just a little bit about those moments. We won't talk about them specifically for either company, but just generally what your enlightening experiences were.
Well, there have been many enlightening moments in this, what for me has been a very unexpected journey from investor advocate to a corporate director. And my years at the Council of Institutional Investors certainly gave me a basic understanding and appreciation of the roles and responsibilities of a director. But as the saying goes, before you judge a person, walk a mile in his or her shoes, and I've certainly been doing that. A few of my biggest learnings in the past few years have been, first, the extraordinary breadth of issues that comes before a board. I knew it intuitively, but I didn't appreciate it until I faced it. Second, I think the extraordinary amount of work that's required to do your job well. It's not just preparing for the meetings, but it's staying on top of issues. I think any committee participation or leadership, more so leadership, it's extremely time consuming. I underestimated that as well. I think a takeaway from me on reflection is that there is an expectation gap, I believe, between what investors expect of directors and what really is reality. Directors oversee, management manages. That line sometimes is not precise, and it may shift depending on a company's situations, but I do think there are times when I hear an immediate response of where were the directors, and my thinking now that I'm a director is, well, wait a minute, that might not be perfectly fair. Another takeaway is I think directors have changed so much in the 30 plus years I've been in the governance community. I think 30 years ago there was a sense, rightly or wrong, that directors were mostly cronies of the CEO. It was a period of imperial CEOs. I think today the directors I meet are so committed and interested and enthusiastic about doing their job well and representing shareholders.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that in the media you hear about outliers, and there are outliers. I mean, there are boards that aren't good.
In every walk of life.
Yes, but when you get the chance to go in a boardroom and see that a majority of the directors really are trying their best to do a good job, it should give you some encouragement that, usually the problems aren't mass problems. It's isolated to where we read about it or what people see.
And can I add two other observations that link to that comment, which is, first of all, I'm so now deeply appreciative of the importance of diversity in the boardroom, not just in terms of gender and race and ethnicity, but in terms of professional backgrounds and perspectives. I'm incredibly fortunate to serve on two boards where there's great diversity in the boardroom. And that really is the foundation for robust discussions and great back and forth. And one other related issue is the importance of the collegiality in the boardroom. And I'm sort of embarrassed to reflect on comments I've made in the past that collegiality is overrated. It actually isn't. I think it's the cornerstone of an effective board. That doesn't mean that everyone is always in lockstep agreement, but it does set the foundation for every director to feel comfortable voicing his or her views and to have all of those different views considered as boards are making decisions.
Yeah, I'm sure all that must help you. I know you are an advisor to Spencer Stuart as well, which is such a fascinating position for you to take all those years of experiences coupled with your serving on the board and offer advice about skill sets and effective searches and stuff like that. So it must be an interesting experience for you.
And very rewarding to see boards, I think, thinking long and hard about the precious real estate that is the boardroom, and to really be thinking about the kinds of skills, backgrounds, perspectives that are needed as the companies look ahead to navigate, I think, increasingly challenging futures.
So I sort of look at this as a great opportunity for our viewing audience, because you had a chance to reflect on a couple things, but again, you spent so many years in the investor world, pushing for change. What, after your board experience, what would you say, what advice or what guidance would you give both boards and investors because of the experiences that you've gone through?
Let me bucket those into a few categories. I think the first is the incredible importance of transparency. I think boards and companies are doing a better job being transparent about governance practices, and I think also describing why directors have been selected to represent shareholders. And I think investors are doing a better job being transparent about their views on ESG issues. If I had one advice right now for investors, it would be to increase their transparency about their views on environmental and social issues. I think in the old days, the governance issues were a little bit more clear cut, maybe yes or no, classified board, majority voting, proxy access. Today's issues, sustainability, culture, purpose, these are much more complex, and I think everybody's wrestling with what's the appropriate board role here, what are the best disclosures, what are investors looking for, and I think as investors' views and company views evolve in this area, more transparency about best practices or best disclosures would be extremely helpful. Second topic I would comment on, it just builds on the comment I made earlier, which is for everyone to continue to focus on the need for diversity in the boardroom. I think there's been great strides for women in boardrooms. I mean, it's been slow, but it's definitely that women are advancing, and I think that's largely due to investor pressure. I think progress for racial and ethnic minorities is much slower. I think investors will be pressing on that front as well, but I think it would be best if boards just take the initiative and really think hard and long and take steps to enhance the diversity in those aspects.
So my experience with directors and boards in this ESG is there's metrics for E, there's metrics for G. It's the S that is really the challenge here that they're wrestling with on how and what do investors expect and what's the right thing for the company, because in the end, while there was, we've heard about purpose and we heard about increasing the stakeholders' interest, everything still has to funnel to performance at some point in time, and that's a challenge. The other thing that I'll just mention, and I know you and I have talked about this, and that's the importance of committee chairs, okay? And it is, anybody that's been in the boardroom understands the work that's done between board meetings by committee chairs. And I just can't, to both investors and to boards, stress enough the planning that's necessary to make sure that they get the right people in those seats.
I couldn't agree more, and that was something I didn't fully appreciate. First of all, is how much work is done by committees, but really the heavy lift that's handled by the committee chairs. So having the right people in those roles is so important. And I think this is a space where maybe overboarding policies for investors possibly could be refined, because I'm not sure. I think capacity is an issue for anyone serving on a board, but particularly if you're chairing multiple committees.
Yeah. Well, Ann, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your now busier schedule to come join us, and I appreciate all your guidance that you've given our audience.
Thanks for all you do, TK.
And that will conclude this edition of Inside America's Boardrooms. We hope you enjoyed the show. We'll be back again next week when we take another look at a critical topic that'll help you be a better board member or committee member. So we'll see you then.